guys, Mary Ann Farley here, and today we're going to do a grid. And the reason you do a grid in painting is when you have a small painting that you really like, or even a photograph, and you want to significantly, or not even significantly, but you just want to enlarge it onto another canvas. Now there's three ways that you can go about doing this. One is a projector. I bought this like 20 years ago. It's a real cheapie. You don't need anything fancy. I mean, this is almost like a kid projector. Oops. You know, really cheap plastic. But the lens was fine and it did the job. And obviously I just broke it. I'll fix that later. But it doesn't come without its own issues, because you're still going to have to scan in or photograph your image. And you're going to have to shrink it down into this 4x4-ish window here, and you would place it. You would place the image here, and then you would move your lens to project it onto your canvas. The other issue, though, with using a projector, other than having to buy it, is you're going to have to do it in the dark, which means, you know, depending on where you live, if you're in an apartment, you're going to have to do it at night because you really need total darkness. You can freehand your drawing. I mean, you can try to capture what you got into the small piece onto a large canvas, but if you're going really large, it gets more and more challenging, even when you're an advanced artist. I mean, I've known professional painters who've done landscapes who would project their landscape photograph, just for placement, you know, and then they would go in and do their painting or pastels or whatever. But another technique that you can use, and this is helpful when your aspect ratio doesn't line up. Now, I know, aspect ratio, it sounds like math. Don't worry. Some of the complaints I've seen on some grid videos on YouTube is that they're not dealing with aspect ratio. And what is that? Well, when you have a small painting, you want to know exactly how large of a canvas you should buy or stretch, so that that small piece is going to fit perfectly into that large canvas size. Otherwise, you're going to be trimming off the bottom or the top, or, you know, depending upon what part of your smaller piece you want to use, if those two things aren't lining up. Now, for example, in my Facebook group, Art and Soul School, we have a member, Judy Wood, who is doing a wonderful series called One, and it's from what she was saying, I think they're all on basically 9x12-inch canvases. But she got a commission for, I think she said 24x36. Well, let's say, you know, she wanted to test out her composition on a 9x12 first. Well, the 24x36 piece she bought is not going to work because they are different aspect ratios. I think 9x12, if I'm not mistaken, is 3:4, and 24:36 is 2:3. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because her 9x12 piece would definitely fit into a very common size that you could buy at the store, which is 18 by 24. Now, in the description, to make things so much easier for you, I'm going to do a list of common canvas sizes that are all going to fit into each other. So if you have a small piece, you know for sure what it's going to fit into. But taking the case of a 9 by 12 piece, I've done I've done a graphic. I've done a slide. Now we know, right, from the list, 9 by 12 will fit perfectly into 18 by 24. But the question is, if we grid our original into 1-inch squares, how do we know how big our squares will be in 18 by 24? Well, the way you figure it out is you take your first number, 18, and you divide it by your first number here, 9, and that's 2. And that's all you really need to know, but to back it up, we divided 24 by 12 and we got 2. So that means 1 by 1 inch squares on 9 by 12 are going to be 2 by 2 inch squares on 18 by 24. My issue, and it may be your issue too, is that you have a piece at home that doesn't fit your aspect ratio. Well, if you're just doing a character, in my instance here, I did my own copy of Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl. I did my own interpretation, and she's on a very squarish rectangle. I tried measuring this. I don't know what country it came from. It's not in inches, it's not in millimeters, it's like crazy sizes no matter how I measure it. But it doesn't matter because I already know my aspect ratio is off because the wood panel I have is 12 by 16. So my challenge for today, and maybe for you too, is when your aspect ratio is off, how do you place a character onto a larger size canvas and get a placement that you are definitely going to like? Okay, let's go. Hey guys, okay, so what I did was I took my Girl with a Pearl in this odd size, but like I said, we want to just get the character onto the surface that is not the same aspect ratio. And since we're just placing a character, aspect ratio isn't going to be as important as if I drew a lot of stuff around here that I would like to transfer as well. But no, it's just her, and this came out beautifully, right? How did I achieve this? Well, first I scanned her in and I printed her out on 8.5 by 11 paper to the full size of the paper because I want to make it as easy as possible to draw each square. Now, initially what I did mathematically, and I did make a bit of an error, which hopefully is going to be helpful to you, is I counted my columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. Now, as you can see, her cheek hits the 1-inch line perfectly, which is great for me. And I'll explain in a bit, why really that's where you want your first line drawn. You want the first line drawn on the far edge of your image and on the top edge of your image, and then basically like grid the character herself. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so I had 8 columns, and initially I divided that into the entire 12 inches, and I got 1.5 square inches. Now let me just put this down. So this is going to be my canvas because I will be able to draw much darker on here for you. So initially I did 1.5 inch squares, and I can see that she's going to be too large, right? She's very large. Even with moving her around, the only way it was going to work would be maybe if I did her kind of flush left, but then I'll be cutting off some of her headdress, or I could cut off some, I could just see it wasn't working. And then I was like, well, where did I make my mistake? Because that should have divided in properly. And then it dawned on me, I should have marked where I wanted her cheek placement. I decided to reduce the square sizes to 1 1/4 square inches. And even before measuring, I intuitively felt that would work, and it did. But why did it work? Okay, I decided that I wanted to put her cheek, like right here. And this is 2 inches in, right? So, let's see. And again, this is like, working on tissue paper first to move around your placement is really a godsend. So, okay, so it's 2 inches over. Well, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I divide those 8 inches, and initially I cut off this 1/2 inch here because, this was, I'm now using this column, whereas as I didn't before. So I had 8 inches last time, but now I'm cutting out this column, and I'm counting in this column because her headdress breaks that last column. So I have, 7.5 columns, 1 inch columns going across, but I'm calling them 8. So when I divide 8, if I remove the 2 inches from the side, because this is where I want her cheek placement to be, 8 into 10 is 1.25 square inches. So, my intuition was right, and I've actually backed it up mathematically. So the question becomes, where do you want your image to sit, on the top, right? And so I've marked it here, right? And I've marked it over on this side as well. So I want it to be here, and then I want her to sit here. So since you have already gridded your tissue paper, you just get your proper placement, and all you have to do then is line up your paper or your canvas with your paper, and you don't have to go in and draw 1.25. You don't have to measure that each time going down now because you've already done it. So, I just marked it, as you can see, going down. I marked it going across. I marked it matching, aligning it here on this side. And now, I would just go in and start gridding. You know what I mean? Just start drawing all of my lines. Okay, so here we are. I've numbered my columns, I've lettered my rows, and now the rest of it is going to be easy because we're going to be drawing little boxes at a time. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but I've emphasized the top line and the line where we want to start her cheek, right? Because we've moved that over here you know, we know exactly where we want her thanks to the tracing paper. So I'm going to start in row E, column 1, and you just draw each little box. And now we're in D. You know, if you want, you can like make a mark relative to what you're looking at here. So I know that I basically want my line to hit here with a slight curve. Okay, from here I want this to cross. Looks like there's a tiny triangle right there. Maybe I should lower this, but let's bring this down. Okay, so now we're in B2, and we can just, I mean, that, you know, as we see, I can either draw this line first or that. Let's do the bottom line first. You know, so this cuts, say, maybe at 1/3 mark here. So I know what I'm aiming for. I've noticed that that makes things a lot easier. This is just above, here's like the half line. This is just above that, so I'm gonna aim for that. And that perfectly crosses the intersection at B4. And you can smooth these lines out as you get further along. Okay, so in row C, C5, I see that I've started with her headdress there. That looks like it cuts off at the 1/3 mark. Okay, so I'm speeding it up here, obviously, and I'm just going to jump in with narration because, yeah, I mean, if I will possibly put this up on Art and Soul School, the long form version of this, so you can hear me walk through each step. Really what I get into more than anything, you can see me coloring in these like little boxes, and that again, I'm referring to the negative space. If you really keep your eye on that and you see where your triangles are, and your squares and your rectangles. Oh, now this is interesting because I wasn't paying attention to my my boxes, and I got lost. So I'm redrawing it here in a colored pencil because I'm drawing in a Stabilo pencil, and unfortunately you can't really erase a Stabilo. Okay, so I'm doing her face. Yeah, maybe I should just put some tunes on while you watch this. But, you know, like I said before, you can smooth these lines out once you start connecting them. And also, too, it's to help you get placement, as you'll see as I'm doing these eyes here. On the original, I made I'm marking like the halfway point of the box, again, just to help as a guideline for placement, constantly looking back and forth at each one. It's really surprising just how close you get with your image. Oh, and here I noticed when I was doing the lips, again, looking at the negative space around the lips and coloring that in on the original, and oh my goodness, it was so much easier to do than even when I, because I knit, as you know, I already have this down on my canvas, my wood panel, but the second time around I noticed the shapes on the outside of her lips, and it just made it so much easier to see where to place the lips rather. And so, because I have more room on this wood panel than what I had on my original, I'm going to be able to feature more of her clothing, which, believe it or not, was in the Vermeer original. So here we are, and yeah, I think she came out great. I'm going to paint her, and that will be another lesson, but I will also draw her again from scratch, probably in the painting lesson, just so that you can see. I just had to draw a 3/4 face, even though this is definitely an odd 3/4 face, because it's more abstract. I mean, technically her eye on the left there should be a little smaller, but again, it's the idiosyncrasies of what I liked in the original that brought me here. So anyway, please join us in Art and Soul School on Facebook or at artandsoulschool.net. Here's all 3 of my images together, and I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I hope this was helpful. I hope I've answered some questions that have been on YouTube there. Okay, I will see you soon. Thanks. Okay, guys, once again, join us at artandsoulschool.net or at Art and Soul School on Facebook. There will be an end card here as soon as the painting is actually finished for you to click through and learn with us on that too. Take care. Please don't forget to subscribe and to hit the bell. Thanks.